Narrated Abu Qatada bin Rabi al-Ansari. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "If any one of you enters a mosque, he should not sit until he has offered a twerk at prayer." Narrated Anas bin Malik. Allah's apostle, peace be upon him, led us and offered a 2 at prayer and then went away. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar Abu. I offered with Allah's apostle, peace be upon him, a 2 at prayer before the Zuhr prayer and 2 at after the Zuhr prayer, 2 at after Jumu'ah, Maghrib and Isha prayers. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah. While delivering a sermon, Allah's apostle, peace be upon him, said, "If any one of you comes while the Imam is delivering the sermon or has come out for it, he should offer a 2 at prayer." Narrated Mujahid. Somebody came to the house of Ibn Umar and told him that Allah's apostles, peace be upon him, had entered the Kaaba. Ibn Umar said, "I went in front of the Kaaba and found that Allah's apostle, peace be upon him, had come out of the Kaaba, and I saw Bilal standing by the side of the gate of the Kaaba. I said, 'O Bilal, has Allah's apostle, peace be upon him, prayed inside the Kaaba?' Bilal replied in the affirmative. I said, 'Where did he pray?' He replied, 'He prayed between these 2 pillars, and then he came out and offered a 2 at prayer in front of the Kaaba.' Abu Abdullah said, Abu Hurairah said, the Prophet, peace be upon him, advised me to offer 2 out of duha prayer to be offered after sunrise and before midday. Itban bin Malik said, Allah's apostle, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr came to me after sunrise, and we aligned behind the Prophet, peace be upon him, and offered 2 at. Narrated Ibn Umar. I offered with the Prophet, peace be upon him, 2 at before the Zuhr and 2 at after the Zuhr prayer, 2 at after Maghrib, Isha, and the Jumu'ah prayers. Those of the Maghrib and Isha were offered in his house. My sister Hafsa told me that the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to offer 2 light at after dawn, and it was the time when I never went to the Prophet. Narrated Amr. I heard Abu Asha the Jabir saying, I heard Ibn Abbas saying, I offered with Allah's apostle, peace be upon him, 8 at of Zuhr and Asr prayers, together in 7 at the Maghrib and the Isha prayers, together. I said, O Abu Ashata, I think he must have prayed the Zuhr late, and the Asr early, the Isha early, and the Maghrib late. Abu Ashata said, I also think so. Narrated Muwarik. I asked Ibn Umar, do you offer the duha prayer? He replied in the negative. I further asked, did Umar used to pray it? He, Ibn Umar, replied in the negative. I again asked, did Abu Bakr used to pray it? He replied in the negative. I again asked, did the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to pray it? Ibn Umar replied, I don't think he did. Narrated Abdur Rahman bin Abi Layla. Only Amhani narrated to me that she had seen the Prophet, peace be upon him, offering the duha prayer. She said, on the day of the conquest of Mecca, the Prophet, peace be upon him, entered my house, took a bath, and offered 8 at of duha prayers. I had never seen the Prophet, peace be upon him, offering such a light prayer, but he performed bowing and prostrations perfectly. Narrated Aisha. I never saw the Prophet, peace be upon him, offering the duha prayer, but I always offer it. Narrated Abu Hurairah. My friend, the Prophet, peace be upon him, advised me to do 3 things, and I shall not leave them till I die. These are, to fast 3 days every month, to offer the duha prayer, and to offer witr before sleeping. Narrated Anas bin Sirin. I heard Anas bin Malik al-Ansari saying, an Ansari man who was very fat said to the Prophet, I am unable to present myself for the prayer with you. He prepared a meal for the Prophet, peace be upon him, and invited him to his house. He washed one side of a mat with water, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, offered 2 rocket on it. So-and-so, the son of so-and-so, the son of Al-Jared asked Anas, did the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to offer the duha prayer? Anas replied, I never saw him praying the duha prayer, except on that day. Narrated Ibn Umar. I remember 10 rakat of nawafil from the Prophet, peace be upon him. 2 rakat before the Zuhr prayer and 2 after it. 2 rakat after Maghrib prayer in his house, and 2 rakat after Isha prayer in his house, and 2 rakat before the Far prayer. And at that time nobody would enter the house of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Hafsa told me that the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to offer 2 rakat after the call maker had made the adhan and the day had dawned. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet, peace be upon him, never missed 4 rak at before the Zuhr prayer and 2 rak at before the Far prayer. Narrated Abdullah al-Muzni. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, pray before the Maghrib compulsory prayer. He said it thrice. And in the 3rd time he said, whoever wants to offer it can do so. He said so because he did not like the people to take it as a tradition. Narrated Mardad bin Abdullah al-Yazani. I went to Utbah bin Amir al-Yuhani and said, is it not surprising that Abi Tamim offers 2 rak at before the Maghrib prayer? Utbah said, we used to do so in the lifetime of Allah's apostle, peace be upon him. I asked him, what prevents you from offering it now? He replied, business. Narrated Mahmud bin Arabi al-Ansari, that he remembered Allah's apostle, peace be upon him, and he also remembered a mouthful of water which he had thrown on his face after taking it from a well that was in their house.